What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We're 91 episodes into this dang thing, and we have finally started the spring split of 2025. Games will be played the day that you were watching this episode, and as a bit of a precursor, a bit of a preview for the season ahead, well, Hawk and I have a little bit of a fun activity that we will explain in just a bit. Might make some people angry on the social medias. This is going to be
the greatest episode of Salty Runback I think ever made. I'm very excited for this. I'll let you finish the intro, but I needed to interject.
My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, you seem pretty excited about the way that this could go.
I'm very excited. I think we're bringing back a piece that we did on Tier 3 tonight. I hinted at it in our most recent episode. And I'm very excited for it to make its return because it's going to make a lot of people mad. It's going to create a lot of discussion, I'm hoping. And I'm hoping it gets a lot of views, likes, comments, subscribes from all of the great fans out there. Again, the support so far in 2025 has truly been amazing. Also, make sure you join our Discord. We've had people joining like literally every day, and the NACL CLL Talk channels have been going. It's been fucking awesome. And then also Patreon at Salty Runback NA. I just recorded with Hoarder earlier today and also uploaded yesterday at the time of, this being uploaded. So,
yeah,
check it out.
So you talked to Hoarder. You broke down one of the qualification games that Tempest / Conviction ended up playing in the Open Qualifier, and giving us a little bit of a precursor for what to expect from him in the NACL. A lot of really fun players to watch there, as we are going to continue those interviews with these players throughout the season on our Patreon page, as well as CCG Office Hours, which will be dropping this Friday as well.
It's a good week for
more and more super exciting stuff. I think you might be involved in that in some capacity. We'll get into that.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
I gotta find a time to record for that. It's fine. We'll talk about it.
Either way, it's not about CLO right now. It's about the NACL, because that is the league that'll be starting games today as you see this episode and go throughout the next 3 every single week until, of course, we crown ourselves a champion in June. And so, as we alluded to, we are going to do a segment that we have done in the past for Tier 3. However, to a much larger scale and potentially to a much wider audience. We're going to bring back the player cards, baby. And it's NACL 2K25. We might be instigating a little bit, but we are going to be creating the cards for the player ratings, the power rankings, and just all in all really fun stuff. If you're a fan of leagues, like sports management games, like Football Manager, like Madden, like 2K, as we see here, you're very familiar with a concept like this, and this is going to be our way of breaking down each of the 10 NACL teams before they kick off competition in split number 1 of 2025.
Yeah, look, everybody does power rankings, player power rankings. Those are fun, but we had to add our own little discourse. And as Grapes mentioned, this is inspired specifically by FIFA, because that's what I played growing up because I'm a nerd. And inspired by FIFA, but also all those other sports management games where basically players get a rating 0 through 100, but usually it's basically like 70 to 100 or maybe 60 to 100 in the Madden FIFA games, or 60 to 99, I should say. That kind of just describes how good they are within the confines of pro soccer, pro whatever, right? And so we've done the exact same thing here for the NACL, where we have rated all of the players on that same scale within the confines of NACL based on how good we believe they are right now. Let me stress this again. How good they are right now. We've also included these tags that kind of describe different aspects that might make the player stand out for one reason or another. That will kind of explain, I think, as they come up. So that might, help give them like a little bit of a boost in general. But yeah, we've rated the players based on how well we think or how good they are right now compared to the rest of the NACL. And hopefully it's going to start a lot of really fun discourse. This is basically going to serve as our power ranking to start off the season. But maybe add a little spice in along the way. Grapes, am I missing anything? Am I forgetting anything?
So just an expectation setter of what you'll be seeing on the screen, if you're watching us on YouTube, of course, is on the player card, you'll see the player, the position that they play, and their name, as well as a number from 75 to 99. That is the rating, the overall rating that we have given to the player. Important to note that Hawk and I definitely disagreed on where we should place some of these players, and we ended up arguing for a little bit before eventually settling on something that kind of fit in between.
Some of them we both put exactly the same number, and it took zero thought. Some of them we were apart by like 8. It was crazy.
Yeah. So we'll bring that up kind of as we go. But then, as you mentioned as well, we have I think the way they call it in 2K is like the attribute badges, which are little parts of players' games that we think stick above the rest. For some of them, they will have a bronze, silver, or gold distinction. If a gold badge of something would mean that they are very, very good at the specific thing, or a bronze version of it means that they're pretty good at this certain thing. And that's a big part of what makes them a player that is NACL caliber. At the very end, we're going to average out the ratings of all 10 of the teams, and that'll be our official power rankings. We're also going to show them in order of what their average rank overall is, as well as showing you officially like where the players line up 1 through 10. We didn't necessarily design the ratings in a way that we were specifically trying to rate the players 1 through 10. It was just kind of an overall vibe slash, you know,
there's a lot of ties.
There's
a lot of
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we had lengthy conversations about this. It's also not going to be completely accurate. I would love to hear all of the feedback that you guys have. I would love to hear the flame. Like, bring it all. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is just Grapes and I yapping. So take it with a grain of salt. And on that note, let's get started with the team that we have power ranked 10th. That is going to be, I think, to the surprise of nobody, Polestar kicking things off.
Yeah. This is, again, if you did not watch our headlines episode that came out a couple of days ago, it was announced that, or, you know, maybe not announced, but, like, made aware to the public that the slated 6 roster that participated in the open qualifiers has been kind of picked up by Polestar after all the shenanigans that ended up happening between them signing their contracts or agreeing to sign the contracts that they were never given, and then where we are with the season beginning. Regardless, their roster now consists of Dr. Calculus, Bio, Atom, Hub, and Tub. Hub and Tub previously known as Baruto or Dum Dum or a lot of different things.
Tub is
overall.
Tub is such a good name, though. I love
these players had some high expectations coming into the OpenQ. I think we were happy and excited to watch a lot of them play because of what we've seen from them in previous splits in Tier 3. However, they fell short of those expectations, and again, because these are the ratings of like how good we think these players are playing right now, because they were a bottom or middle of the pack OQ team that are now being thrust into the NACL, they had to be 10th on our board.
Yeah, it's a tough rating for this team. You know, ultimately our expectation is that they just will be at the bottom of the table. And I think a lot of these players individually too, like, again, I like all 5 of these players, you know, for things that they brought to the table in the past, right? But I just think as a team, they're not NACL ready, even if I think some of them, particularly looking at Calculus and Hub, I think could have been like risky picks for NACL teams that wanted those. You know, they're just unfortunately all playing together. I do want to draw a spotlight to Calculus as well. Rated 88 overall, actually second on the team behind Hub. He was who I very strongly advocated to be first team all Tier 3 top laner in Summer Split of 2024. I thought he had a huge split. Didn't look that good in this past OQ. I'm going to be honest. So I think that actually brought his rating down quite a bit. Where I probably would have had him as the number 1 player on this team, Grapes. Also, Hub, who raised his stock in my eyes after that OQ as well.
How about the Nameless throughout 2024? Had himself a couple of good games and things like that. However, his team never finished higher than like 16th or 9th or 12th in a qualifier, whereas Calculus and Bio, even Baruto, have been on teams that have, you know, finished higher, which is why it was very fun and exciting to see Hub perform very well against teams like Third Party. Even, you know, as we got later into the tournament when they played against, you know, St. Clair or so, was very impressed by what Hub looked like as a bot laner. And I think that is why he got the highest overall and also has the high upside badge and the silver rating of that, which we think that this guy can get pretty good if he gets a little bit more reps, if he gets a little bit more experience under his belt, which is why we have him as a silver version here. The other player that I think we want to talk about is Bio, because he was our reigning rookie of the split for summer OQs, and also didn't have the best go of things in this qualifier entering 2025.
Yeah, I thought he had some strong games in their wins and then just some like less strong games in their losses. I do think Bio is a really great player. He got the bronze champ pool badge because he plays some weird shit. I also think he doesn't really play some of the meta shit as well. So it's like, yeah, you know, kind of take that as you will. But I mean, Bio's a guy that definitely has his champions. I think having a young carry jungler like that is super exciting. I will say, just as far as like the high upside badges, I think we could have realistically given every single player on this team a high upside badge, but it's 5 rookies, a lot of rookies in the NACL across the board, by the way, this split, which is going to be really, really fun, I think, to follow. And I do think, for Pulse, the big story is just going to be highlighting their individual victories throughout what are probably, unfortunately, going to be a lot of team defeats, right? And that's okay. But I do still want to build up these players, and I do think they have a lot to offer as individuals, potentially at the tier 2 level in the near future, if not this split, right?
If I had to bet yes or no on if this team would go 0-9 in the regular season, I would put my money on no. I feel like there's a world where they, as a 5-man unit, like out of 9 games that they play, obviously they're not going to be the favorites in any of them. But given our expectations right now, but I could see a world where they like 2-1 somebody, kind of in this next realm of teams.
No.
You think it's more likely than not that they're gonna go 0-9?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll be on the opposite side.
I mean, like, they definitely can beat people. Like, don't get me wrong, they have a chance to beat people. It's just like
they have a chance to beat every team. I think if you do like the whatever law of averages, do the statistics.
Right.
I think
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Vegas wants you to believe that there are betting odds for Polestar.
Yeah. Again, individual success is what we are looking for.
Yeah.
I'd say all 5 of these players have the capabilities of like popping off in a singular NACL game. I just think overall, like as a 5-man unit compared to some of the other teams that we'll be talking about, just kind of are outmatched, at least for now, because of how raw, how green they are, and also how they performed in this open qualifier. But best of luck to the players here on Polestar as we can move on to our number 9 team, rated overall. That is Apex
did you do that transition?
Impossible. I did not. I think that's a shout out to Leanne who helped us out with some of these graphics here. But speaking of Leanne, her team Apex is here, making it through the winners bracket of the OQ, consisting of Decoy, Low Jazz, 5-Mini, Baz, and Pocus. I know a lot of people were hyped about this team. A lot of people said maybe they got an easier run through the open qualifiers. I think the biggest thing is that this was not necessarily the number 1 most expected team to come through, and I think because of that, they have some lower expectations than the other teams that qualified through the OQ, as they are here at number 9.
I mean, Pocus acknowledged on our show last week, Grapes, that there is definitely a chip on this team's shoulder, I think, and that is, I think, a really cool mentality to have. I mean, like, out the gate, yes, this team is fighting for their NACL lives, but again, acknowledged by the support, and I do think a lot of these players have the capability to rise to the occasion, which is why they are average rating of above 80. Now, immediately, I think people are going to see 5-Mini rated 79, and that is going to be controversial, because a lot of people are excited about this player. I know Hami AG did their player power rankings and had 5-Mini 4th in mids. I think 5-Mini has a lot of upside, and I think this player has shown some good stuff, but also has had individual struggles, and I actually think it was the successes of a lot of 5-Mini's teammates that allowed Apex to be successful, specifically looking at Low Jazz, Baz, and Pocus, who I think had a absolutely phenomenal open qualifier. Decoy also, I've just thought he's good for a long time, and then Fi is kind of the player that I'm looking at to still grow in what is overall a weaker mid pool, as we'll come to see.
Yeah, I'm actually just coming to the realization that he's the lowest rated player on his team, which I wouldn't necessarily have said coming in to this. He was the one.
This is one of the ones that I had to fight you on a little bit, to your credit, Grapes.
I had this guy higher. I think I had him as an 80. I think I had 5-Mini as like an 83 or so. But I did watch.
I will say, in general, I think we rated Apex closer to my rankings than yours, and this is one of the teams that we disagreed on more.
Yeah. I think that 5-Mini, watching some of his POVs as well as watching the tape throughout the qualifiers. I know you watched the you casted that big qualification match, where maybe he was struggling here and there until he got that Akali in game number 5, of course. But
He had
I
a
think
good
this is a
game on
player.
Victor earlier in this series as well. But yeah,
This is a player that I think is going to be very fun to watch and could be a version of a Samikin from last split, where maybe it was a little bit greener coming in, qualified maybe surprisingly into the NACL, and then has like a really nice growth trajectory throughout
Yeah.
the season. And we also gave this guy a high upside silver badge. All 5 of these players actually are rookies, and then we got our first Unk status patch for Focus because he's been around
my
for a long
favorite.
time, but also it's his first split in Tier 2. He would be eligible for a Rookie of the Split award.
Yeah, shout out to Lojaz as well, who I think has really solid comms. Watching some of the AMI POVs when I was preparing for the Dog Fans match that Sunday. I think Lojaz is a really great player. My take is that I think Lojaz is the best player on this team, and I am actually really subscribing, I think, to Shivy's
The year of Lojaz, baby.
I think Lojaz is a stud. I think this guy definitely has the potential to pop off. I've been saying this on Salty Runback for now about 3 weeks, but don't sleep on this AMI team, guys. I think they're definitely 9th, but I really think they have the ability to punch above their weight class and actually like not necessarily be 9th when it's all said and done. I think this team has talent. I think they play together really, really well, and if they can learn how to close out late game advantages, they're well poised, I think, to have a pretty solid spring split in Tier 2, and I'm really excited to watch them.
I feel like one of the big advantages that Apex had going into the OQ is the fact that they've been scrimming together for months before the tournament started. They were scrimming since, I think, December. 4 out of 5 of them were in ACL together, and then also a big chunk of them were in OQs together in the summer as well. So interested to see if that synergy can like continue to be a win condition or an advantage for them, or if that starts to fall off a little bit as we get towards the back half of the season, as other teams get more reps together, more scrims together, and maybe allow for them to solve some of the issues that a team like Apex might have been able to take advantage of over, say, a Dog Fans or a Dorado Gaming in the OQs.
I mean, hey, Apex, they know they have a new mountain to climb. So I believe in them to keep growing. The question, I definitely, to your point, is can they grow fast enough? I feel like this is definitely the team, I think, where we've rated the players most closely to each other, because it does feel like Apex Mission Impossible is a team balanced across the board. No superstars anywhere necessarily, maybe a budding one in the mid lane for Fi Mini, but a lot of room to grow as a team and become more than the sum of their parts. But Grapes, think we can keep it moving to our 8th seeded team, which I believe is another promotion team, Conviction.
Yeah, as you might notice, 81 average overall for Apex Mission Impossible. That jumped up to an 84.2 for Conviction. And spoiler alert, the next few teams that we're going to be talking about are all very, very close in terms of the average overall rating of the players that we have given themselves. So that means that we kind of entered a new tier in terms of our expectations for these squads and also for what we think about some of these players. This Conviction roster consisting of Hoarder, Kizno, Darkwings, Aaron, and Minui. And they had themselves a little bit of struggles at the start of the open qualifier, but then ended up righting the ship, taking that 2-1 series win over the Citadel to qualify in. And I think, Hawk, it's this Slew carry duo from last year that really kind of put the team on their back towards the back half of things.
Absolutely. Darkwings and Aaron both getting the bronze that guy tag. This is also a new one where basically they have the ability, I think, both these players to just become LeBron James in the critical moment. You know what I mean? And we saw that specifically with Slew last year. I think we've seen this from these players over the course of their careers as well. I also think Aaron specifically just has the personality to behold this tag. Which
in 2K, this is like the takeover badge where if you get a little hot, all of a sudden like you hit this stride and like all the screen kind of flashes and then you just become like a 99 overall player.
Yeah,
It gets to
exactly.
game 5
Kizno
and
could have
Darkwings
gotten
walks
this
in that
for
Kalia.
he could have gotten this for Kindred as well. I want to say Kizno
That's
Kindred.
true.
Still don't disrespect, you know?
Oh, you know what would have been cool if we did like a little like pocket pick, little like an icon down there. That would have been fun.
We should have done a pocket pick. Okay, well, it's fine.
Anyway, also think Kizno actually has really been standing out as well. Has had a really nice growth trajectory for himself as well. This is his 3rd year of competitive. But He had his first split a year ago on Lit, and I think had improved a lot from there between that and when he was on Lit back in 2023. And I think even going into Dragoon's Goons, even though it was an OQ team, also really took some big strides just as a player overall. And I'm excited to see what he looks like coming back into the NACL after having some extra time to grind out some solo queue to play more competitive league. And I think that he could actually be like a solid middle of the pack, if not maybe even better, with high upside NACL jungler.
Completely agree. I think Kisno's great. I really do think this, as we've been talking about all year, Grapes, this jungle mid 80 carry, they are going to be the rocks for this team. I think it's completely fair to say that Hoarder and Manui are the players that need to show us more. I will say, shout out again to Hoarder. Watch the interview at Salty Runback NA on Patreon. He said that he thought the loss that the team took was like the best thing that happened to them because it like humbled them. It forced them to lock in. Hoarder said he felt like he grew as a player just like in the days following that match leading up to their lower bracket run, which I think is really cool to hear from a player of his caliber and his experience level. Definitely, gets that silver high upside badge for a reason. Also a rookie in the NACL. And then you got Manui, who, while not a rookie, is new on his support role. And lowest rated player on the team, I think he is the one that I've still yet to see like the NACL sauce from in his role. But I do believe that Manui has it within him, and he's still very green at support, right? Like he's almost the most rookie out of anybody, specifically when it comes to the mechanics of his role, right? And so bronze high upside badge for him. I think we expect Manui to get stronger throughout the split.
Definitely. I mean, he has the brain to do it, right? He took on a more utility role on a lot of the teams that he played on in the NACL, just thinking back to his time on Fear and even back to Disguised in 2024 summer. He was always willing to lock in the Seraphine or even play something like a Jhin or an Ashe on his team in order to help the rest of his squad succeed. But yeah, I think decently high upside overall for this Conviction roster.
Agreed.
I know we said this on our Salty Runback episode once they promoted, but I could see this team being 8th or being in that 8th place area, but I could also see them jumping up to a 4th or even 3rd if things go really well for them as well. So I think we could say that probably about all these teams, but I think especially for Conviction, where they have a new player in a new role and a couple of either sophomores in Kisno or a rookie in Hoarder who is very, very hungry, very excited to try to improve as a player.
Hell, even Aaron, he's been outspoken the last few days about his previous experiences at the NACL. I think Aaron, also a player that's really hungry. Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is a hungry team, and I definitely think one that could be dangerous, especially as the split progresses.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to watching this team play. They got a matchup early on in the season. I forget exactly who it's against, but I think it's Supernova maybe? Or no,
they got one against AMI to start the season.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then I think Luminosity is like week 2 for them, which is like, oi. But
fantastic.
Yeah,
spoiler alert, Luminosity is a little later on in this list. As we can go on to team number 7 in the power rankings here as we continue to move right along, and we get to CCG Esports, one of the last teams to fully announce their roster, but finally have in full Crimson, Dardoch, Aljun, Array, and Breezy. 3 of the 5, Crimson, Aljun, and Array, played together on ACL, which is, of course, the premier off-season high elo tournament. They won that, finished first place, of course, and they brought in Breezy at the support position and Dardoch replacing Kryra, who was on the team at the time as well. You see here the average rating, 84.6. That means just 2 points in overall higher than Conviction.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just going to talk about the elephant in the room right away. Rookie mid laner Aljun won ACL with a very similar squad to this CCG roster on the same organization to sort of earn his spot in this organization's eyes. But Grapes, I think it's completely fair to say that both of us would not have put Aljun up for promotion into the NACL. And so, rated 77, I'm going to be straight. I had him at 75. I think Aljun is definitely my big weak link to look out for. I would love to be proven wrong. I think this guy has great team fighting, and we've seen flashes of it, but it's going to be a tough go of things, I think, especially against some of the stronger mids in the NACL. And it definitely does make for my biggest concern for this team, despite, I think, a generally talented roster across the board.
I think, CCG, with the roster that they have set up, kind of are able to benefit from the fact that the rest of the league also has kind of decided to invest in younger, newer mid laners, or just
There's
that's
four
just
rookie mids this split.
Yeah, and so I feel like Aljun, Gordo put it in an interesting way on the salt mine in the episode that they dropped over the weekend, which is that if you're just better than the rookies, and then one other mid laner, it could be like a Darkwings,
Yeah, your top half.
somebody else, then all of a sudden you're a top half mid laner,
Yeah.
right? And so that is what is possible here for a player like Aljun. I had him a little bit higher just because he played in the ACL against a lot of the other mid laners that are coming into the NACL for the first time in Aegis, and ended up outperforming them and helping CCG win this championship. And through the scrims that they must have been playing throughout the last couple of months as they were trying out players, he would never was like somebody who was traded in or out. It seemed like CCG were experimenting with a couple of different supports over the last couple of weeks, but the mid lane was never a question for them. Aljun is a very steady part of what this organization kind of wants to run with, and he's had some good times on Purdue Northwest, as well as now going to get his hand at the NACL level. I remember we were high on Aljun when he first debuted back in 2023, and I think he was like 16 or 17. I think he was actually on Conviction, if I'm not mistaken. But it's just what happened last year when he was on Lotus and looked like definitely the weaker link on his team. He's going to have to try to do better than that here in the NACL.
No, I mean, the team undoubtedly did look stronger with Robbie Bob, right? But I do agree, and I think it's a great point that you bring up that the other three rookie mids, Asila, Fimini, and
Adam.
Adam, thank you. Them three, like, literally were the competition in ACL for Aljun, and he did have that tournament, so I think that's a good point to bring up. But kind of moving on from that point, I mean, definitely rooting for Aljun and hoping he's able to perform at a high level in this league. A lot of talent across the board. I think Unk Dardoch, Array, Breezy, all generally considered to be known quantities. We can talk about their stories a little bit because I think all three of them were not playing on teams of the caliber that I think they wanted to be last year, it's fair to say. And so we're hoping to see them play really well together, with Crimson in the top lane being one of, as we'll come to see, many top laners that we put kind of in this tier 2 beneath the top 2 top laners. And Crimson being one of the ones that we're hoping to see rise up.
This guy has a silver high upside badge, just because I think there's a lot that he improved on going from his split on CCG in the spring, where he looked definitely very raw at times, and then towards the end of summer he was starting to have some really solid carry performances. And I think if he can carry that momentum into 2025, obviously it runs in the family that this family can produce LCS level talent, so I definitely think that Crimson is in the running there. And yeah, I want to echo your point a little bit as well with specifically Breezy, who last year was kind of stuck on AoE Esports
2 years.
2 splits in a row.
Basically, right?
2 splits in a row, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like this guy has been a player that we've been super excited about. And I thought at least for a bit, was one of the best supports in the tier 2 space overall, especially when he was back on CLG in 2023. But we just haven't seen him on a team where he's been able to have that high level of success. I think if this was a year and a half ago, right after the CLG split, he'd be in the 90s, but just because he hasn't been able to find that team success, we have him a little bit lower. But he still is the highest rated player on CCG.
It's still crazy, too, because on all those teams, I feel like Breezy's been, like, the best player. Like, I think him and Mobility saved AoE's season last year in relegation, right? And him and Wixie were really trying their best on that spring AoE team. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think Breezy's a great player, and I think this definitely has to be a split where, he proves that he still got it. Because I agree, I think has been one of the best parts on weaker teams over the last couple of years. Array, a bit of a similar story, bit different. We saw his that guy potential on Dragoon's Goons, particularly in Tier 3. Actually, funnily enough, I feel like didn't see it as much as we wanted in the promotion tournament. But, I mean, we all remember the Ducky Getters incident, the Ezreal incident of 2024.
Oh, yeah.
We know how good he can be. I think that split he had on Golden Guardians Challengers back in 23 spring was still extremely strong. And I think Array still definitely has that level of play within him. And then Dardoch, every time he jungles, looks like the best jungler in Tier 3. We haven't seen it in Tier 2. So
I think the last time we saw Dardoch jungling in Academy was like promotion tournament of 2024 spring on Mirage Alliance when they roll swapped some players around. I'm trying to remember what it was before that. It might have been like an Immortals team or something.
In Academy, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while. I really couldn't, because we, again, like I think of like Team Fish Taco, St. Thomas, and then whoever the fuck he played for last year. Jeez, I'm.
Yeah. So even though it was
But
Lotus last year,
He's been insane.
or
He's been like first team jungler all those splits, basically, is my point.
yeah, and he's always been at the top of tier 3 in terms of his jungle play. I'm taking a quick look. Last time was Dignitas Academy in 2020. It looks like. It was the
It's
last
been a
time he
minute.
played
It's
in
been a minute.
the NACL.
That's an unk right
he was
there.
a coach on Immortals, which is where this picture is from. But yeah, again, always top of the line in terms of either CLOL or tier 3 when he's played. And so that's why we have him at
I would even say a step above the line, like two, right? Not just top of the line, but.
So I guess overall, like, what are we expecting from the CCG roster? Like, what do they need to do in order to, kind of jump from the 7th spot? Because again, very close kind of next group of teams that we're getting ahead of ourselves for.
Yeah, I could really see this team, like, because now that we're talking about it, like, it's like, man, Crimson, Dardoch, Array, Breezy, like, we haven't really seen all that we wanted from them yet, right? I could see this team, I think, really meshing and popping off. But I could also see them being like absurdly mid, which I think is kind of where we've rated them, right? Because that's a little bit more where the expectation is. But I do think there's actually a lot of upside for this team. Now that I'm kind of talking about it, I think my opinion has literally shifted during this, 5-6 minute conversation we've had.
So you think maybe we underrated some of these guys?
I think CCG is maybe a little bit underrated. I don't know. I think there's a lot resting on Aljun's shoulders. I'm gonna be honest.
I think it's also the fact that we haven't, again, seen the fullest potential of all these guys. Even Crimson, when he was doing well in the NACL, like, they still finished 9th at the end of the regular season, right? So,
yeah. It's also like, this is an interesting take, actually, that one of the NACL casters shared. I won't say who it is because I don't know if they would want me to share it, but they said basically that, they feel like there's a lot of good players on this team, but they don't know if, like, this is necessarily the right team, right organization to unlock the full potential of all these players, in a similar way to, like, maybe why Breezy would have struggled more on some of those AoE teams, where it's just like the infrastructure wasn't there to, like, unlock the full potential of those players. So I thought that was an interesting idea, and I do wonder if that's something that also could come into play.
it's a little speculation for us on our end, at least right now. But definitely possible. Their head coach is Mesmerism, who's been around for a little bit. And so we'll see how they end up doing throughout the rest of the season. Let's move on to our 6th place team as we round out the bottom half of things here. And we're going to go to Winthrop University. Now, I will say, in terms of community sentiment that I've seen coming into the split, we have this team ranked a lot higher than some of the other ones, almost a full point above CCG. I've seen other power rankings around that have Winthrop in the 8th or 9th tier, but I think we agree that they're a little bit better than that.
Yeah, Winthrop is a really interesting team. I liked the take that Collimer had in the Salty Runback Discord, join it, where he said, I don't get how people keep consistently putting Winthrop like 3 or 4 spots below us when we go like 5 games with them every time we play, which I it's pretty based. I mean, he's coming to bat for his rival. We talk so much about how Ole Miss, Winthrop are the best rivalry in CLO right now.
I mean, we had that conversation last week on our headlines too, after they played their best of 5 series.
Yeah. I just think it's like routine disappointments from Winthrop have jaded a lot of the fan base, and understandably so. Denethor's 2024 summer was not great, to be honest. I think, especially considering all the hype we had after the spring split, and then 2023 summer, like, we thought this was the guy, and he kind of was like, it wasn't great, right? Then, Wilson and Sword, I think, have kind of soured in our eyes from being top of tier 3 to like, they're just all right. I really do think, though, that this team has the ability to punch very high, and it particularly comes from the bottom lane. I think Mobility and Only 35 are incredible. Mobility, we've talked multiple times about this guy. Best League of Legends of his life over the last 6 months. I think he is absolutely peaking, and he continues to, like, seemingly, in my eyes, keep grinding, keep going higher. I think Mobility saved AoE. I think he was huge for Winthrop last year. And he is, although not being considered a rookie for this split because of some of his other stints, he is for the first time starting in his own roster spot on week 1. And I really am looking forward to watching this player hit the Rift in tier 2 because I think he has so much to offer.
Yeah, and him and Denethor both have that guy, Silver, silver badge for us because they definitely can turn it up if needed. We've seen them have these clutch moments either in the OQs or in CCL. You know, you think of Denethor like locking in a Camille in a game in a do or die game 5 and just absolutely 1v9ing a game. I feel like that's happened more times than I can count on both of my hands. And mobility also has really been able to kind of wipe off that choker narrative that Winthrop has had for a little bit, especially over these last few months when he was on AoE, and then of course with Winthrop's early success in CCL so far. So I'm really excited to watch this team play. I think taking a look, we probably underrated the mid jungle for this team just a little bit, but it might have just been a way for us to really discern where we think that these teams are where this team like plays through in terms of their strengths, because it feels like it runs through the side lanes here for this team.
Yeah, and I've seen games where Wilson and Sword hard carry, right? Like it's definitely happened. I definitely think it's been the lack of consistent performance for them that's made us the most trepidatious about these two players. Wilson, a rookie in NACL as well, despite being at the top of tier 3 for quite a while now. But again, has never really won anything, right? And you have to call into question like ability to kind of rise to that next level. I think a big opportunity here for this entire Winthrop team. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on them because Grapes, again, regarding overall community sentiment, I think this is the team that most people have on Fraud Watch.
Yeah, I would again, because we have the ratings here right now. I think that also with this being the first of our 3 collegiate programs that are participating in this in this league this year, like having that existing in-person synergy is going to help them out compared to maybe some of the other teams that are maybe playing remote. Just the idea that they have played together for a long time as well. Only 35, the only new addition to this roster, and he has already kind of looked like he's slid in and fit very, very well alongside mobility. I think this Winthrop team again can also punch above their weight. The thing is, we've been saying this about all the other 3 teams, the last 3 teams that we've talked about, and I'm sure we're going to say the same about the next 2 that we unveil as well. So we'll see what Winthrop look like, but I'm pretty excited to watch them play this season.
To me, CCG feels like a team, right, where they got a bunch of like real good players that if they gel together, they could punch above their weight class. Winthrop feels like they have the raw talent in certain places to really fly high, but they need to be able to support that, right? And everybody needs to lift each other up to do it. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really interesting to see where this team ends up. Always rooting for Winthrop, always rooting for collegiate, but Grace, we can keep it on moving to our tied for 4th place team. I think we just listed them in no particular order. It's Blue Otter.
Yeah, so this team and the next team that we have listed actually ended up exactly tied in our power rankings. Like we didn't do it on purpose, but the average of the 5 players of this team and the 5 players of the next team both ended up being exactly 86.2. Right. And you can see again, very close distinctions. We're only like 2 points ahead of 8th at this point in terms of average overall. Less than a point between this team and Winthrop. But Blue Otter fully running it back. They got Quacker, Music, Salmonkin, Levitate, and Rovex. They finished 5th place last split, and I think a lot of people have them in that top half of teams going into this split.
Yeah, and again, a team with a lot of great raw talent. You have a rookie of the split, Levitate, down there in AD carry, and then Music, Salmonkin, our first plot armor badges that we're seeing. It's basically clutch is sort of what we're trying to describe with this. I think these 2 players, unbelievably clutch. It has been displayed multiple times throughout their career, specifically playing together in 2024. And I think there's a lot of talent right here. Music being another one of the first players we're seeing alongside mobility, I think hitting the 90s in terms of his talent level. I think Music has been a player that has routinely impressed me. Like every single split, I think he's gotten better over the last year and a half. And so a great opportunity to continue to do so here on Blue Otter. Also getting that gold shot caller badge. Very well known for his leadership qualities amongst teammates and, other people in the space.
Something we didn't talk about in our headlines last week is the fact that some, if not all, of the players in the NACL are going to be able to stream their POVs, which, makes sense considering
Hoarder's
going to do it in the league. Hoarder, as you mentioned, did say that he was going to do it in semi-pro POV. If Music streams his POV, you guys should give any of the Blue Otter games a watch, because this guy, the way he calms, the way he is able to function alongside the rest of his team is very, very fun. And I think the more of his POV that you watch, the higher you rate this player. Not because of like any of the individual mechanics, like his map, the way he like moves the map around is not like superior to any of the other junglers or anything, but it's just the way that he is this kind of floor general. He's the point guard really of Blue Otter. He's the one leading the charge in a lot of ways, and that's why he's our highest ranked. And I think, yeah, at a 90, the highest jungler that we've had so far in the rankings as well.
Yeah. To kind of talk about the other players as well, Quacker, Rovex, we got our favorite Unk down there in the support position. I did a great impression of Rovex earlier. I'm not going to do it now, but I was really happy with it. Rovex, you should film a video of yourself saying that Salty Runback called you an Unk, okay?
He's just got those deep bass tones.
Yeah, man. Dude, Rovex, I will say, also has great comms, by the way. For some reason,
he's
the
the
dudes
perfect
with really deep
secondary
voices.
shot caller.
Yeah, he reminds me of actually Enthralled, who also has like a silky voice, where he doesn't talk very much, but literally everything he says is like extremely useful information that's like good for the team. And I think it's interesting too, actually, because regarding like Blue Otter's comms dynamics, a lot of times I've noticed that Rovex actually has the final say when he pipes up. So I think that's like a really cool dynamic though, like music's kind of keeping everyone going, but Rovex is like, guys, lock in, we're doing this, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's cool.
Yeah. Samikin is the one player that we actually really haven't talked about too much. And I think that this guy could have gotten a high upside badge just like Levitate if we wanted to, or I feel like we were being a little bit sparing in terms of where we were giving these out, but this is another player that I think took a big jump in 2024 and could absolutely take another one going into 2025 if the meta works out for him, if he's able to play these control mages, maybe even expand that champion pool a little bit more, because that definitely was something that has plagued him historically, or just we've talked him on the show. He says like, oh, I don't like these certain champions and things like that, but that's like, I guess, the next step for a player like this. And if I think this middle of the pack, Music, Samikin, and Levitate can all take next additional steps in what would be basically their sophomore seasons all throughout, that's where Blue Otter is able to jump into that next tier of teams.
Yeah, I think Blue Otter, a really interesting team being talked about in power rankings as well. Pretty universally put forth, I feel like, by a lot of people. I'm going to be honest, I actually think this is one of the more overrated teams in the league. I've talked about my opinions, I think, on our last episode, where I think I'm a little bit nervous for Blue Otter because the people are expecting them to start from the peak that they hit at the end of last year. The question I have is if they start there, right? And that's a big, big if, but we do know what kind of demon that they can turn into. We do know that about the talent and like I think still like a lot of raw, unharnessed ability that they have. The question is definitely going to be how well they harness it. Again, another team that I could really see kind of ending up anywhere in this mid soup.
Yeah, I think maybe part of our change in expectations is it's pretty public at this point, but the scrim record apparently is not very good for this team. Also, we've heard that like the way Phil runs the scrim blocks like is not necessarily conducive to winning a lot of games, but he hopes and he thinks is conducive to improvement as we get into the stage game. So that is going to be the big thing that I have my eyes out for. Blue Otter got off to a slower start in the NACL last split, and so wouldn't be super surprised if they do it again. But again, we know the peak that a team like this can reach, and very excited to see what they do here in 2025. Let's see who they were tied with, though, Hawk. And maybe we kind of already alluded to it already, but we've got the other collegiate team in the NACC to match alongside Winthrop, and that is Supernova here at an 86.2 overall. Stray, Keel, Asila, Shogo, and Rhino. And we finally get Shogo and Rhino together in Tier 2. I mean, that's the most exciting part of this all.
And I'm going to come straight out the gate. Grapes and I disagreed on some of the players here. I had Supernova rated a little bit higher individually, specifically in jungle in the bottom lane, where I had everybody up a couple of points from where they are right now. I think they have a lot of individual talent in those places. I also had a silo down at like 75, but it's fine. I think there's some really good players on this team. We have talked so much about Shogo and Rhino on the show over the last 2 years now. And we finally get to see it in NACL. I believe that this could be the #1 bottom lane in the league. Grapes disagrees, and that's okay. But
I mean,
That's my
it
belief.
could be. That's not my power ranking right now. Definitely not.
Fair enough.
I know you disagree with me a little bit on this. And don't get me wrong, I love Shogo and Rhino. When we watched them on Ole Miss in 2024 spring, they were far and away the best bot lane in the OQs.
It was
Fortunately, it
not
wasn't
very
enough to help
close.
them promote into the NACL that split, but definitely showed a lot of promise, and it was very clear that this is an NACL caliber bottom lane. First in the league, though, we'll see exactly. I feel like that was like the peak of what we saw from Shogo and Rhino was that spring split of qualifiers. And then even as we went throughout CLOL, obviously like in the NECC playoffs that year, Shogo like kind of gapped Winthrop on his own and played 3 straight games of Jinx and won the series 3-0 there. But even as we got later on into the tournament, I think Rhino specifically is a very like volatile player where he'll either be the best support in the entire world or he'll go 0-10. And I feel like sometimes the coin was flipping tails more often than not. And they haven't been as dominant in my head at least this season of CLOL compared to last season. I feel like that is credited with a player like Mobility like rising up and him and only 35 really contesting this bot lane in the matchups that they've played so far. Um, but I mean I don't want to like say I don't
I
want to
mean,
say I think like
could you
Shogun
say
and
it's
Rhino are
also
bad. I just think that it's not
playstyle differences as
necessarily the
well though,
curse.
right? Because Keel, I think a really important piece of the puzzle. The main difference, like, look, Asila versus Marty, it's kind of similar to me, but Keel coming in, I think, is a huge thing that needs to be noted because Icelandic would sell out everything to play for his bottom lane every single game and kind of allowed Shogo and Rhino to play however they wanted. But I think what Keel brings is the potential to have another carry that is not Gil, right? And I think it's a difference in playstyle that maybe slightly blunts the blade of this bottom lane. But I mean, Keel, we have seen MVP conversation 2023 summer has not really hit that peak in a bit, which is why
Understood.
he's rated 86. I had him higher, but that's okay. Um, but we know how good he can be, and I think he can be a huge X factor for this Supernova team, and that's kind of where my expectation lies.
Yeah, I mean, again, think Keel's a good player. We have him with the silver shot caller badge because he's a big leader on this team. However, if this was 2023 and this is wildcard Keel, or if this was AoE Ginger Turmeric Keel, this is a 90s player for sure. This is a guy that I think could maybe be in the running for potentially fighting for an LTA spot, for a tier 1 spot. It's just we haven't seen that in a while. His year on Team Liquid was very kind of whatever in my
Mid.
opinion, and that includes like his time with Fisher for the collegiate season last year as well. And even this year on Ole Miss, they've played a couple of those NECC games. He's been good. He's been solid in the scrims that we've watched and in the matches that they've played. But I feel like we still haven't seen him rise back up to that like super high level jungler, super high level player that we saw back in 2023. Which is why, again, current status, current state only, I maybe have
Which is fair.
these
Which
players a
which
little
is
bit
definitely
lower
fair.
than you did.
I think it's fair. I will say, I do think one of the series that really impressed me was watching Keel play against Near Airport, actually. I know it was day one Near Airport, but I thought Keel had a great scrim block there. And I think we saw kind of some of the differences between how well Ole Miss played when they had Keel versus KJ as well. And again, KJ is a great player, but I definitely think Keel brings a whole nother element. Talking about some of the other players, Asila, another one of those rookie mid laners. I think, again, someone that we need to see something from, the obvious potential weak point on this team. But as we've kind of highlighted, weaker mid lane pool maybe balances things out a little bit more for the Supernova team. And then just talking about Stray as well, another one of those top laners, 85, just like Denethor, just like Crimson, that we think will be good, but we
Yeah,
don't
I
know
think
how good, right?
I feel like they're all kind of in that same tier, right? Like they're going to be solid top laners. They can have good performances. They can also just be like a weak side guy if they want to. Specifically, I think Stray does a really good job at like absorbing opponent's pressure. I'm very curious to see like a matchup specifically between like him and TF Blade. I know they played in the scrims a couple of times when New Airport was first starting off, and sometimes TF Blade gets the best of him, but other times like Stray's been able to soak up a lot of the pressure that like a very lane dominant top laner brings to him. For Asila, had apparently a very good Aegis run. I didn't get the chance to watch too much Aegis during the off season, but from what some of those commentators and those analysts were talking about, they actually were very impressed by Asila. from what I've seen from him in CLOL, it's been much more of that sellout role, kind of that you were talking about with KJ, where it seems like he's like kind of relegated to the utility player, the utility champions. Things like the Lissandra has been a big pick for him, where he's playing really for the team. He will sack waves, and I feel like when he came in, like maybe some of us as were hopeful that he could be a little bit more than that. And there's still a lot of time for that to happen. It's just that has not been how Supernova / Ole Miss have been winning games so far this year.
I will say, point in favor of Asyla. We've heard a lot about how incredibly hungry this guy is. And he's, I feel like, been individually outspoken about how hungry he is as well. So definitely wants to earn the spot. But yeah, again, just definitely the biggest question mark on this team. I think Supernova has a high ceiling. I also think they have a very low floor, to your credit, Grapes, as do most of the teams that we've talked about so far. Worth noting, looking at some of the tags, Shogo, Golden, that guy. We have seen how he can become Superman in critical times. Also, I think the first skill check tags we're seeing basically showing that these players are willing to take hands checks and also willing to just try to dominate their lane and win game.
And they'll win when they do that.
Yeah, we've seen that time and time again from Shogo and Rhino. So Shogo gets the silver, Rhino gets the bronze. Also, Shogo our rookie. We didn't have room for the tag, but this is his rookie split. It's been long awaited. And now we get to see it. I think the Supernova team, alongside their collegiate counterpart Winthrop, is definitely one of the teams I'm personally the most excited about this split because of the talent and what they bring to the table.
Well, we've gotten through that big soup, so let's get into, I think, what most people would consider to be the contenders in the NACL for this year. We're going to start off with Near Airport at number 3, maybe a little bit controversial if you are not as big of a fan as the NACL coming into the split, but this team looks super dominant throughout the open qualifiers, and look at that guy in the Jungle Hawk. We got our first 99 overall. They get their special gold card. It's Spica, who is very clearly still an LTA level player.
Yeah, Spica in tier 3 was actually fucking disgusting. Like, I think that is what people would have expected from like everyone on this team, and like credit to tier 3 for like, coming to bat in some of the roles, but oh my god, it was filthy. Gets the superstar tag as well. Down on the bottom side of the map, it's Unction Junction with Pobelter, Double Lift, and Biofrost. Double Lift, 91 OVR.
Listen, okay, let's defend this here, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually
we agreed.
A rating
we
that
agreed
we agreed
on.
This. We
for
both
the record.
had Double Lift as a 91. You might have noticed the last couple of 80 carries before, we're all kind of at that 93-ish range. But Double Lift is a player that I think, if he was in his prime, if it was 2018, even 2019, even as recently as like a 2022 when he was on 100 Thieves, right? Like, this guy would obviously be a 99 overall, one of the best players ever to play League of Legends from North America. However, if you watch his OQ VODs, especially over the last couple of years, he's taken on more of that weak side role, seemingly almost willingly, right? He was playing the Ashe, playing the Varus, getting 2v2 killed a decent amount, either in the scrims that they've been playing and have been streamed live, or even in some of those official matches. I think a take that some people had is that in that Respawn series, the one position where Respawn actually looked like they had the advantage was the bot lane in Sushi and Mixture, and I think that kind of plays a bit of a role in that as well. So
yeah, I mean, it's fair to say. Oh, sorry.
The 91 here, it might seem a little disrespectful, but from what we've seen so far, that's kind of where we rate Double Lift. However, golden high upside tier, which is typically reserved for the rookies, because I think another important thing to note about this Near Airport team, they're going to be maybe sandbagging or handicapping themselves a little bit. They said they're not going to be scrimming as much as like a typical NACL team. They said they're also going to be streaming all of their scrims and also all of their reviews, which is something that not even Los Ratones does, actually. But if these guys want to lock in, we've seen what these players do at the top of their game, and that's why we have him at the high upside, because I could totally see him just locking in and just absolutely dominating everybody else in the league.
Alongside TF Blade, two very different sides of the same coin, both golden high upside. Yeah, Double Lift, I think it's fair to say he kind of got in backpack in the OQ. He's even very content to just let Spica fist every other jungler, and he was like, I'm just going to kind of like go up 10 CS in lane. Like, if I'm being honest, I think it's a little generous to Sushi and Mixture to say they had the advantage. I just think Doublelift and Bio didn't like hard win.
Yeah, that's fair.
And they didn't really they didn't have to do very much. Like Spica just fucking destroyed everyone. The same with TF Blade. Yeah, dude, like, I don't know. Doublelift at 91, it looks funny. We agreed, though. Like, I do not think in terms of, like, raw individual sauce here in the year of our Lord 2025, Doublelift is that guy right now, which is why Mobility was rated higher. Shogo was rated higher. Stay tuned for our other 2 teams. And so we'll see, if he brings it back. I think we saw flashes of it from Pobelter. I think we saw flashes of it from Biofrost. I think we definitely saw it from Spica. And then also, to move on to our one rookie on the top side there with the golden upside, TF Blade massacred everybody in Tier 3.
We're not counting the Tyler 1 Championship Series in 2017 as a full competitive split because he did play in that with some of his teammates there, but he really just dominated everybody throughout the OQ. However, I think we have seen like scrims streamed where even somebody like Decoy was able to take advantage of him. And again, this is the downside of a team like Near Airport streaming all their scrims. We get more tape to judge them off of, where they're maybe playing a little bit more loose, trying different things, right? But I think from what we saw in the qualifier specifically, that's what gives TF Blade this high upside tier. I mean, he's like consistently top 5 ranked in solo queue. He has like insane hands on a lot of really high mechanical champions. Like if this guy like figures it out over the course of the season, he could very easily like become a top laner in this league. I think he's in that tier right now with like the Stray Denethor. That's kind of where we've placed him. But definitely has room to grow beyond that.
1 point higher for more recent fisting of Moose Hater and Lawrence. But yeah, I agree. I think it feels like a good spot for TF Blade to be in right now. A very controversial figure. We actually had a whole conversation in the Salty Runback Discord about like whether or not Near Airport can win the league. Grapes and I say yes. They're in that top 3 as opposed to it just being a top 2. However, they're definitely the team that I think we have the most question marks surrounding. We'll see if these golden high upside guys can get up to that high 90s status. Doublelift, looking at him, but right now 91 overall is where the goat of NA sits.
Now, here's a like hypothetical for you. Do you feel like this team, like the reason that they're ranked lower is because they're maybe not going to try as hard, or like they're playing for content a little bit, which is not a bad thing, all things considered. Getting eyes on the space is obviously going to be beneficial, but do you feel like if this team fully locked in, they would be just the clear runaway favorites to win the NACL, or do you think that they would still have some competition at the top of the table?
I think they'd have competition because I think at the end of the day, and why I've rated specifically players like Doublelift this way, is I don't think their individual skill level is that much higher, if at all, than say DarkZero, which I've already said I think they're going to win the league, right? Like, yeah, I like, you know what I mean? And I don't think that like is necessarily a knock against Doublelift. We know how good he has been over the course of his career and how experienced of a player he is, but right now Doublelift's just like raw skill level is just like not quite there, and that's okay. It's still maybe enough to win the league, but yeah.
We will see. I mean, I know this is probably the favorites by a lot of the external community to be at the top of the table, be number 1, but we have 2 teams ahead of them. Let's get into who we have. Yeah, I know. As soon as one like little thing happens, Doublelift gets a pentakill. Like that,
it's Jove. It's Jove for us, bro.
Let's move on to number 2. Who will it be? It's also going to spoil who number 1 is. Luminosity at number 2 in the league. Oh man, Hawk. This is the team. They stated on their Twitter page the main goal of this roster is to promote into the LTA and become a Tier 1 organization, and they certainly got the guys to do it. 5 LCS veterans, Fake God, Tomio, Insanity, Tactical, and an LTA veteran in Zazel.
Yeah, this is a fucking stacked team. I don't know why you said LTA veteran for just Zazel when...
Because he was on Lion or...
Oh, okay, right. I was like, they all played in the LTA last year.
It wasn't called that then. It was the LCS.
All right. You know what? Get this guy off my podcast. No. Guys, we got another 99 in the mid lane. It's insanity. I think one of the players that has had alongside Tomio, the least fair shake at the tier 1 level, like, ever. This guy is, I think, routinely proven that he's good enough, but just kind of on shitty teams, so he goes back to tier 2. He's like the Breezy of of tier 1. I don't know. Yeah. This guy's nuts. He's also got a great champion pool, as we've noted, with the silver badge right there. Definitely between him and Tomio, I think expected to be some very, very strong mid jungle. I'm realizing actually they have the same rating as the mid jungle of near airport, but regardless,
just flipped actually.
Just flipped,
yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, last time Insanity was in tier 2, or last time Insanity was in tier 3 on 100 Thieves Next, completely gapped the entire league. Last time he was in tier 2 on Dignitas, also, I think, best mid laner in the NACL. And I think when he was on this TSM that turned to Shopify here, was I think like one of the more consistent players on the team overall. I know they
showed the most looks.
Yeah, I know they struggled throughout the year, but I actually was very pleased with like how individually Insanity was playing, especially on some of those TSM rosters that like got a little bit of momentum at certain points throughout the year. And so I certainly think that coming back down to tier 2, Insanity will still continue to be very good. You know, of course, depending on like how hard he wants to try, how hard they really want to commit to playing in tier 1. But I feel like these are 5 players who do want to still continue to play League of Legends. It seems like whenever they're at this level, they are very, very good. Obviously, Fake God, Tomio, and Zeyzal won the NACL against Insanity on Cloud9 Challengers, and then also did it again on Disguise. And now we got 2 other vets in there, Insanity and then Tactical, a player that we have not talked about yet.
Yeah, it's funny because Tactical also rated 93 overall. We'll kind of talk about that trend very soon, but yeah, you know, it feels like Tactical and Fake God are just the 2 players that are kind of on, like, the tail end of their career. I just think it's fucked up that Fake God's an unk, but then, like, he's 24 years old. Grapes, time of this release of this episode, I turn 24 tomorrow, all right? Like, I don't like that. And
it's
also,
over for you.
I feel like if Fake God's an unk, Tactical should be an unk, but regardless, because he's also 24, but it's fine. Feels like the players that, like, I think are more on the tail end of their careers. Zeyzal maybe as well, but I feel like we've seen more from Zeyzal over the last couple of years because of what he provides as a leader. Gonna get a gold shot calling badge. I mean, man's a world semifinalist. I don't think anyone will ever be able to take that away from Zeyzal, and he was definitely the rock for that Cloud9 team back then. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Tactical and Fake Out are going to be fantastic. Everyone's just going to look at how they kind of sucked in the LCS, and they forget that every time they play in Tier 2, they're the best players in their roles.
There was a split where Tactical played some time in the NACL, like, relatively recently, right? Was that, like, on an Immortals team? I feel like...
I don't remember.
Maybe I'm mistaking. Maybe I'm
I don't
confusing
think
him
he's
and
played
Neo,
in the NACL,
actually.
ever.
Yeah, I might be thinking of Neo
I could be
when
wrong.
Neo came back down and looked really good. We'll have to double check on that.
I don't think he's ever played in the NACL. I think last time he was in Academy was when he was splitting time with Double Lift. I could be wrong though.
Either way, I think Zeyzal, again, a player that every time he's at this level, just completely dominates because of that, those comms and things like that as well. He's also like a really chill guy and a really fun guy to like
good engaged
be in our league
player.
as well.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a fun team. Obviously, they have that high level goal of promoting, and this is like probably the biggest name brand organization in terms of an esports org that has come in. You know, Luminosity is a group that has had so much success.
I watched DarkZero win ALGS at Galen Center,
like,
so I knew who they were more than I knew who Luminosity was.
But historical president, right? Like this is like a team that
no, I know.
They were CS. They were really big in CS. Like back when I was like in middle school even. So they've been a historic franchise. Finally jumping into League of Legends. Maybe the recent success. Maybe go to our next team here.
Dare I say this is the safest roster coming in at number 2? Only I think. Like literally 1 point on a player lower than DarkZero Dragonsteel, 95 average. We have another superstar jungler, back-to-back 2024 MVP, Yuji leading the charge, and then Zamudo, double gold badges in the top lane, the MVP of the Summer NACL Finals. the player that I think everybody has their eyes on to prove that he is an LTA caliber top laner.
Yeah, I think that last split was like the breakout for Zamudo. You know, he had good splits before that, but this is the one where he really became like the best top laner in tier 2. And I think this is the split where if he, you know, takes that next big jump or takes another jump in some capacity or just gets another split of having that level of experience or playing at that same level, he could certainly be tier 1 ready by even the summer or even by split 3.
Yeah.
I don't know how many teams are going to be making roster changes at that point, but definitely in the cards for a player like Zamudo. The amount of growth that we've seen of him on a team like Dragonsteel last year, being able to not just be the guy who plays the weird champions, but also can lock down the meta picks as well. That's why we got him with the gold champ badge as well as the skill check, because you better know that he is dominant in lane. Actually had the best CSD and XP difference at 15 out of any of the CLOL top laners throughout the regular season. And there's some pretty good top laners in CLOL as well, as we talked about last week with our power rankings coming out. So just the amount of dominance that this guy possesses in the early game, it allows for the rest of the team to obviously succeed. These are the defending champions, with the one change being Sajed being the addition in the bot lane with Scary Jerry going over to the LTA.
Arguably a side grade as well. I mean, I guess Scary Jerry beat Sajed. Oh no, it was the other way around. Sajed beat Scary Jerry in the finals, right?
But then, yeah, I mean, Sajed wasn't in the finals.
Right. But regardless, I mean, Sajed, another player, another 93 rated overall AD carry, because Grapes and I are not willing to make that decision. Well, Grapes isn't. I maybe am, but no, I'm kidding.
It would have been Sajed that was higher. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think another guy that we're looking at to become an LTA caliber player. Sajed is extremely good. It's so funny actually looking at Spyrax now being like the lowest rated on the team. I feel like we've just not seen the flashes that Prime Spyrax showed us back in like the FlyQuest Academy days alongside Yuji. I think he's been relegated more to like solid mid laner tier. I think but he's still damn good at his job, like, to be very clear.
And you know, dare I say, even I feel like part of it is probably just because of the fact that you look at the players that are around him, and he doesn't have to do very much. If he just plays solidly, if he controls his lane and allows for Yuji, Zamudo, and then Scary Jerry at the time, now Sajed, to like elevate and allow for them to really like take the reins, like a player like Spyrax maybe doesn't have to do as much. And you know, we always have had this Yuji Spyrax combo, whether it was on FlyQuest or here at Maryville/Dragonsteel. Like, I think a large part of what Yuji has been able to do also is, you know, with the help of his mid laner for the last 3 years.
Yeah, and I think the big expectation for this team, right, is we've seen what the Maryville system has done for guys like Zyko, what it's doing now for Zamudo, and we're hoping that also continues to happen for Sajed. I mean, the talent specifically in these side lanes, I think, is really cannot be understated how good these players have the potential to be. You know, I just think about too, like, in regards to like Maryville and what they bring to the table. I feel like, you know, for Zamudo playing under this Niles led team, you know, Niles has helped him, I think, unlock his potential as a top laner. Also, like, anytime I've seen, you know, Frankie walking around at like LCS finals before NACL finals, right? And then I did the interview with them after they won the trophy. Like, Niles was with him, right? And like, kind of, you know, I just think it's really cool, like, what that system does for these players, not just in terms of their individual like growth as players, but like as people, and like helping them, you know, come out of their shells and do more. Like, I really think it's cool. And I mean, yeah, expectation is like, and the reason why we have this team number 1 is we believe that this team, pound for pound, has more just like raw talent than anybody else in the league.
Yeah, it's maybe a bold take, especially considering the LCS/LTA veterans that are on Luminosity. But I think the general consensus is that these are the top 2, right? Like, these are separated again by 0.2 on average points.
So 1 point
on our rankings. So 1 total point across the board. Like, if Sajed was a 92, if Spyrax was a 91, if Yuji was a 98, like, we'd be tied, right? So that's kind of how close the community, and I think us also think that these two teams are. All 5 players, I think, either have been in consideration for a tier 1 spot, or I think should be in the next year or so if they continue the trajectory that they are on, specifically looking at Zamudo and Sajed. So obviously, expectation is to make it into that top 2. Obviously they also have the hunt of a CCL trophy that they are going to be working towards throughout this first split as well. But a lot of interesting things to kind of consider here, especially, merging with an organization like DarkZero, who will be helping them on the pro side of things as they try to, of course, get towards their goal of being a tier 1 org.
Yeah, great expectations for the reigning champions. It's funny, too. I feel like it's almost a disappointment that UG is playing for this team again, and yet, we know what he can do. DarkZero is going to be the #1 team. We can take a look at kind of how everything shook out. We've put the teams on a bit of a scale right here. A big, thick soup of 5 teams in the middle, 2 maybe hanging out a bit more towards the bottom, and then 3 up top with DarkZero leading the charge.
By just that little bit. You see how close it is. It's not completely mathematically accurate, but I think we got relatively close with how things are. Obviously, Supernova and Blue Otter tied. But again, that group in the middle, and you can maybe even throw an Apex in there if they start to hit their stride and play as that 5-man unit that they were able to run the OQs with. Like, that battle for the difference between being like a 4th place team or being an 8th place team in the playoff bracket obviously is going to be massive, and so it's going to be a very interesting and exciting regular season. I think any time that we see like that group of 5 play against each other, it's going to be must watch. And the same can be said for this group at the top. Speaking of, Near Airport playing Luminosity as the second matchup of the game that you are watching today as this episode is released.
Yeah, that is going to be... Look, no disrespect to the mid-tier teams. That's going to be must-watch. League of Legends, Luminosity against Near Airport. We talked on the last episode about how, this is also teams of like a lot of familiar faces for maybe new fans. I think this is really good scheduling, and I'm super excited. I agree with you. I think this NACL field, to me, with its wealth of rookies and its a lot of teams with kind of mixed expectations and then some big heavy hitters at the top, I think it could be argued that, like, look, the talent level maybe not quite as high as it has been as we kind of continue to leak veteran players that don't keep coming back. But I think we're going to continue to see new stories coming out, and that is going to be the most valuable thing that always comes out of tier 2. These players are here to win trophies and to raise their stock in the eyes of many, and it's a really incredible opportunity to do so.
Speaking of players, let's do the last thing that we have to do and pull out the big grid, baby. This is where, in order, all the players have been ranked. I think it is important to note that it is not necessarily a fully linear scale like we had on that timeline. It just would have been a lot more effort to kind of go through it that way. Anybody that you see like highlighted together, for example, Denethor, Crimson, and Stray up there, as well as Quacker and Hoarder, and then Calculus and Decoy. Like, those are the ties that we had in the rankings. Maybe slightly broken based off of like what our general expectations are, but like that we didn't really put much thought into the tiebreakers here. But this is where we are.
We half-heartedly broke the ties, I think. Doublelift being at number 5 in the middle of that 80 carry board is so funny. I really like, someone send this to him, man. Like, I want to see the reactions. But oh, dude, this is gonna be. I mean, so it's crazy. I think what's more insane to me is looking at some of the players that I feel like are disrespected right now. Like, Aaron being down there 8th in 80 carries, Breezy 6th in supports. I see Kizno at 7th in jungle right there. Like, that to me is like, I'm like, damn, these guys are so good. But it speaks to the talent level, I think, particularly we have in jungle and 80 carry.
ADC is by far the deepest role. I think jungle a little bit more on the top heavy side, especially towards the top half of things. But Aaron's an 86 that we had in our ratings, and he's 8th. So that's like kind of the demonstration of how good we think bot lane specifically right now is in tier 2 League of Legends. Even though there's nobody higher than a 93, we have this big chunk of Sajed, Tactical Shogo, and mobility there. Maybe we're being a little bit underestimating of some of them, but I think it's just generally a way of us saying that the 80 carry pool is all very, very talented, and I think there's any given day where one of these players can 1v9 a game on their own, and we think there's not too much of a distinction between all 10 of them.
Yeah, I think a huge question who's going to break out of that pack in the top lane. Soup as well. TF Blade, he's not highlighted because we rated him one higher, but I think those 4 top laners, we're kind of looking at those guys to maybe break out. I mean, fuck, Hoarder and Quacker and Calculus definitely could too. Yeah, like who's going to be the heroes of the split, right? And those are the biggest questions. I do think in contrast, the mid lane pool is really funny. We talked a lot about the rookie mids. And then you've got like Insanity, Pobelter, and Spyrax up there. And then look, no disrespect, Samikin, you know we love you, but it's kind of like googly-eyed Hydra, you know?
Yeah, I mean, him and Music are the same ranking, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes a good amount of sense, I would say.
No, I agree.
It is interesting to see, like, we have Sword and then like the 4 rookies in that bottom half. And that was kind of the argument that we were saying, like, if you can be better than that pack of people, if you can be at the top of that, all of a sudden you're like a middle of the pack to top half mid laner in the NACL, which means it's very wide open, and I feel like a lot of opportunities for players like this to like break out or have a higher upside as we go throughout the year.
Yeah. I mean, Grapes, I think that's probably going to do it for us here on this episode.
Take a screenshot, everybody.
Yes.
Take a picture.
I welcome thoughts from all parties on social media. Make sure you tweet at us at Hawkcast and at Speedy Grapes. You heard it here. At Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes, also at Salty Runback NA. I want it all. Because I know this is probably controversial in some ways, but it's a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, it is to draw discourse. Let us know in the comments, all that good stuff. I think, a lot of people are going to disagree about a lot of different things, but the most important thing is building up these players, expectations for them. I think, to me, again, I keep harping on like the double of 91 like being 5th, even though I rated him as that, but like it's just so funny to look at because there is so much deep talent in this region, and a lot of great players that I am really hoping the introduction of a team like Near Airport can introduce fans at large to.
Hey,
that's going to be the most exciting thing about this season to me.
If you disagree with us, like, we have all our socials down there, as you said. We'll probably tweet out the full like ranking list, or maybe we'll go team by team. I know obviously the season starts today. The season starts today, which means that we're not going to be able to like run out like one team a day kind of as we go throughout. So we're going to have to either dump them somewhere or just like have like 10 tweets in a row. We'll see what exactly we want to do there. But yeah, let us know what you disagree with. I think the fun thing about this is that this is just 2 guys' opinions. 2 guys that watch a lot of these players play League of Legends, but obviously so do a lot of you guys if you're watching this show and are at the maybe like hour and 10-minute mark of the Salty Runback episode. So just
like we did in Tier 3 tonight, maybe we can do a redux in a couple months once we've seen some more tape.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, especially if this seems popular. So enjoy the games, everybody. The NACL has finally begun. We're gonna get Week 1, 6 best-of-3s, Fearless, all the like over today, tomorrow, and Friday, and we'll be right back here on Monday to break it all down in our next headlines episode.
Yeah, make sure again like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all of our social media at Salty Runback NA, at Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes. Check out our Patreon, same handle. Join our Discord, link in the description. It continues to become a better community each and every day. Thanks to all of our great fans out there. It really is. I mean, like, I've loved talking about NA League of Legends with every single person there, and more than just NA League of Legends. But if you think our ratings fucking suck, you can take it with a grain of salt. That's going to be the most fiery outro you probably ever get on the show. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a good one, everyone.